What is going on, everybody? We are back once again with another edition of Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. It is Monday, March the 10th. Fresh off American Daylight Savings. We'll get to you next over in the UK. But what a show we had last night. AEW Revolution Crypto Arena in LA. I was in attendance, and man, did I have a blast. Monster shout out to my buddies that attended with me. Carter Crisp, our very own here from Wrestling Republic. Bryce and Jay. Monster shout out. We had the time of our lives. Nothing short of delightful. But now, even better, we get to break it down. And I've got two guys hanging with me that did the watch along last night, saw the whole pay-per-view via television. So we've got some great perspective. First and foremost, I'm going to introduce one to you that you all know. It may be a Monday, but get your twos up for the Tuesday Night Delight. Our newest father, Shad Talks Crafts. What's up, Shadi?
What's going on, bro? I'm doing good, man. Little man was watching the pay-per-view too, so I think he enjoyed it a little bit. But it was a great show, man. AEW always hits the marks on these, and I'm excited to talk about it. So let's get into it.
Absolutely. We've already got some comments out of the gate too. We got Fernando Zayas here with what's up, everyone? What is going on, Fernando? Good to have you as always. And then Maria Zayas with hello. How are you, Maria? Glad to have you as usual. And then I Make Beats with Tony and Mariah should have main evented match of the night. I couldn't agree more. I thought it was the match of the night. Absolutely. And then Fernando with Revolution was the best pay-per-view of 2025 so far. And then Clark, if you haven't watched the pay-per-view back yet, JR's commentary made that match. That's what I've heard. So I've seen some of the clips, but I haven't been able to watch it all the way back through. I cannot wait. And then we got a congrats for Shadi here from Fernando. But we can't get all the way started without introducing our friend from across the pond, one of our many reviewers here at Wrestling Republic, the man, the myth, the legend, as we like to call him, Big Arch. Archie, what's going on?
I'm doing good, mate. I'm excited for this show because I've been quite critical of AEW, especially the past few months. But you know what? I think this show has made me an AEW believer again. So well done, Tony Khan. And yeah, let's get into it.
Let's do. And yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I hear you going in. Wasn't entirely sure, but I'll tell you what, AEW knows what they're doing with these pay-per-view events, man. It absolutely works. We've got What Up Shot and What Up Arch from I Make Beats. TCX Warlord with Christian Cage was freaking robbed. That did crack me up. I will say that wasn't the highest point of the night in my eyes, but it is what it is. Jesse Hyde here added next story for the AEW ROH women's division is Athena versus Monet, aka the Battle of the Egos. Okay, that's kind of funny, but I am excited about that. Well, you can't have the Battle of the Egos without all ego, right? That's tomorrow. Let's get into today's show. And
you
let's
hit a roadblock there, buddy.
Let's start with a banger. We've got Toni Storm versus Mariah May. I loved this match. It was the Hollywood ending that we deserved. Card placement, I know, is the only complaint. Let's get out ahead of that. I don't need us all three to vet the fact that we think it should have been the main event.
Nah, we're not.
We know that. I think anybody that's listening right now believes the same thing. We all think it should have main evented.
Yeah.
No matter where it was on the card, this was absolutely off the charts. Nothing short of delightful. An instant classic in every way. The epitome of gold. The crowd was on fire for it. Both poured their hearts out. Toni Storm poured her blood out. It was absolutely off the charts in the arena. I can only imagine how it was on pay-per-view with commentary as well. I mean, Shad, I got to get your perspective on this one. What were your thoughts on Toni versus Mariah 3, the trilogy?
Wow, man. It was a masterpiece upon masterpieces. If you can create one in the world of pro wrestling, this is one of the best women's matches I've ever seen in my entire life as a fan of professional wrestling. And you there's just so many layers to it. You talked about it being the trilogy, the type of match it was, the story that is, the history between these two women. It was a instant classic. I just got to tip my hat off to both of these ladies first and foremost, man. Like you talk about a wrestler like Toni Storm, who was in the WWE and never got an opportunity to showcase who she is and how important of a wrestler she is to the space of wrestling and how she's blossomed into an absolute superstar. And then Mariah May, so young, wrestling in Japan, wrestling in the UK, coming over to AEW and becoming a generational talent. Man, these two women did a phenomenal job. I loved everything about the physicality, the blood, all the props with the champagne shards, and just everything, man. It was so perfect, man. The table spots, attacking Luther, like everything was damn near perfect. And one thing I definitely want to give AEW first and foremost credit on is they don't play a gender role when it comes to type of matches for women. I think a lot of the time you see people like, I don't want women to bleed. I don't want women to be in hardcore matches. That's more of a men's game, right? Nah, man. They let these women historically, and especially last night, have a bloody feud, man. Have a physical borderline death match on a pay-per-view television for a mainstream company. Those are stuff that you don't see happen a lot, and you have to respect that. In regards to where we put this match in the history books, it's got to be one of the best of all time, bro. Like, it's got to be one of the best women's feuds of all time. It's hidden unprecedented territory, and it's one of those cases where Tony Khan and all the great writers in AEW have to give themselves a pat on the back, because this is something that we're going to look back 5-10 years ago and talk about, like, in the same breath as like a Trish versus a Lita, or, a Trish versus a Mickey James, a Becky Lynch versus a Charlotte Flair. It's going to be in the history books as one of the greatest women's feuds of all time and one of the greatest AEW feuds of all time.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. I mean, this feud, and I know this was the Hollywood ending. This is the end. I think it's just on hold. It's a little bit like Sammy and Kevin.
Yeah,
we can drum this one back up in 26 or 27 or 28 or 29. And it's a non-issue. And before I go to you, Archie, though, I do want to address, we've got a bunch of great comments. I'm going to address a few, but this one right here, Anthony Manzano, you're a friend of the show. Love you dearly, but I found it hypocritical that fans of both WWE and AEW criticize WWE for the overuse of blood, but completely let it slide with AEW. Did we forget that, like, every time Jon Moxley bled for an entire year, nobody jumped all over him, or everybody jumped all over him every time he did it? And not only that, I want to say personally, I don't know who those people are where it's hypocritical, because I'm not one of them. Never have been at WR. No. I want more blood. There's not enough blood. Here's the thing. When people fight, they bleed. It provides believability. That's part of the deal. I understand it can be jarring for certain people. And I'm not asking for gore, but I have no problem with blood. I didn't complain, not for 1 second, about the Sami Zayn Kevin Owens match with the barbed wire chair. Not even for 1 second about Punk and McIntyre. I do not care. I trust the performers in this situation to bleed and to do it in a smart way. So I am not going to ever criticize blood in pro wrestling. That's silly to me. That's goofy as a football bat. Like, could you imagine in the UFC or boxing if they were like, here's the deal, you're still going to fight, but no cuts? Stop it. Knock it off. That's unrealistic. We're smarter than that. So no, I don't have a problem with that. But we also have a ton more comments here. We've got 13 minutes of action from I Make Beats in relation to Mariah May and Tony Storm. And yes, that's the other thing. It was 13 minutes. It felt like 4 because it flew by in a way, in a positive way, because every single thing inside of that match mattered. Even Luther took a bump to I Make Beats. And then we have Manzano with, honestly, I lost interest in the storyline after the second match. That seems unfathomable to me. I Make Beats also with this. And then the Chris / Statlander Willow street fight from last year are the two best AEW women's matches he's ever seen. I have a hard time disagreeing with that.
AEW does, like, the women do these street matches, these like hardcore matches good. Like, even when it was Ty J versus Bunny and what is it, Bunny and Penelope Ford on a Rampage a few years ago, that was a really good match too.
Yeah.
Did Clark freeze? Or
I froze.
All right.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
Yeah.
It says connection's unstable. That's not ideal, but we'll get that figured out later.
Okay, I thought it was me for a second.
Oh,
No,
no,
I was
it
like,
was
this is me this time. It is me this time. So I apologize. Anyway,
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, no. I think to that point, like, yeah, they do it very well in regards to how they, like I was saying, they give the opportunity for these women superstars to go in these physical bouts, go within bloodshed, like have these crazy spots. It's crazy, man. It's amazing.
Yes, and then we've got Maria here, Maria Sides with the best story AEW ever told, concluded with the best ending it could have had. I love that. Yes, I have no problem with that. There's tons of that. And then WWE is a very family friendly wrestling promotion. AEW is more for adults. There's nothing wrong with that. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Maria. Just love that. Love that.
Honestly, and a conversation was also, a lot of people online had discourse about this event and last week's event. And I tell you this, man, it shows you why both companies are so different in how they do stuff and how they're both great in that same breath, right? Like we had moments last week, straight up moments, Cena, the Jade, all of that, just big time newsworthy moments. Travis Scott. Last night we had amazing wrestling, and it's beautiful on both parts. And we, as wrestling fans, all you, me, Archie, all of us, man, we get to reap the benefits of it all, bro.
Yeah,
because we get to
so much fun. And then I swear to you, Archie, I'm gonna give you your shot here in a second. But Anthony Manzano, I really did appreciate this comment. He said you guys are fair and unbiased and talk about the fans, or talk about both companies. That just is an overlooked thing, and I totally get that. Yeah, I get where you're coming from, Anthony. I know you weren't saying it about us. I just wanted to kind of make a point about that. I love blood and wrestling, and then you guys are awesome from Bobby Petito. But Archie, obviously, you watched it last night. We've broken down this match in a lot of different ways, but man, was it special. Do you believe this is the best women's match in AEW history, or no? I'm going to ask you that question.
I'm going to go one step further, and this is a statement that I was waiting until I saw how they stuck the landing last night to make, but I'm going to make the statement now, and I'm going to say that Toni Storm and Mariah May, their rivalry and storyline is the best rivalry and storyline we've ever seen in women's wrestling. Their match was one of the best we've ever seen in women's wrestling, and their rivalry is completely up there with the top two best rivalries in AEW history. I mean, last night's match was the most perfect and surprisingly emotional match that ending that we could have got for this rivalry. When you talk about the callbacks, there were some cool callbacks with when Mariah turned on Mina with the champagne bottle. They had the champagne ice bucket filled with broken glass, and then both of them just kind of dipping their hands in the bucket and just swinging at each other. That was crazy. The match was as violent and as brutal as it needed to be, because they needed to sell to us that these women really did want to kill each other in that ring, and that's exactly what they did. And the ending was the surprisingly beautiful part for me, because it's that visual of Toni just hugging Mariah after they've just went to war with each other, and then the end credits on the Titantron. It was just such a beautiful way to end this exceptional feud. And Toni Storm, for me, after this rivalry, is well up there in the conversation of some of the best in the world. But I want to give some praise to Mariah May, because I feel like she gets enough praise from this rivalry. But after this storyline, it's made me truly believe that in the next 2 to 3 years, maybe even shorter, that Mariah May is going to be one of the biggest stars in professional wrestling. She's got all the tools to become a megastar in this industry. And when you listen to her talk about professional wrestling in interviews, it sounds like she just gets it. Do you know what I mean? It sounds like that she understands what it takes to get to the top of this business. And after this storyline with Toni Storm, that just proves to me that she's the entire package. She can go toe to toe with anyone on the mic. She can have a great match with any opponent they give her. And she also strikes me as someone that's always looking to kind of add to her character and advance her character arc. And see how she can improve as a performer overall. So if I'm being completely honest, in the next couple of years, don't be surprised if Mariah May's popularity is up there with people like Rhea Ripley of today.
I couldn't agree more there too. Mariah May, and I make beats with Mariah May is underrated for real. I agree with that 100%. I mean, someone's got an interesting comment here. Anthony does. He said, Clark, I lost interest in the storyline with Tony and Mariah after they did the personality switch with Tony, which he's referring to like the delusional thing. I liked the match, but the storyline got too convoluted for me. See, here's the thing. This is why I really liked it, because if you go all the way back to the beginning of this storyline, I not to take any credit, but just movie buff myself. There's a film from 1950 called Sunset Boulevard. It's about an actress named Norma Desmond. She was a silent film actress and the most famous silent film actress in the world. She has a hideous sounding voice. So as soon as they added sound to movies, the plot line of the movie is she becomes delusional. And she completely forgets that she's no longer a star. She's made enough money. It doesn't matter. But now that she's out of the spotlight, she's completely delusional. She doesn't even remember the fact that she's been sort of written out of the industry. That's like the whole thing, like between the characters and everything. And she ends up committing a murder over it. And that's where the famous line, I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille, comes from.
Yeah.
She comes down the stairs, says, I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille, and she's getting arrested for murder. Tony Storm's character, there's a lot of parallels there. And the delusion of that and the turn on I haven't forgotten, because that's what you actually learn is while Norma Desmond's delusional in that movie, she actually hasn't forgotten. It's a coping mechanism. And that's made clear in the plot of that movie. Not to give spoilers, it's a great film. If you haven't seen it, it's black and white, 1950s. Billy Wilder directs it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Like it's absolutely excellent. But that's what Tony Storm's character is. I don't think they anticipated her being a babyface inside of that context either. Now she is very much. Norma Desmond was not a babyface in the movie by any means, right? She's a cold-blooded killer. But Tony Storm, the parallels from that one, and there's another film that I wish David Sheldon was here because he pointed it out to me as well that they've drawn from that era as well. And I think that's the reason it makes it easy for me to sort of get past the like slight convolution, that suspend the disbelief when it comes to Tony being unsure of, right? And I also thought the comedic aspect of like this hot new upstart, like she's never wrestled in AEW, was funny for the few weeks we had.
I agree, yeah.
And I'm glad they didn't make it last too long. That would have been an issue. If it went on too long, then I think I would have gotten frustrated with it. They did it just long enough.
Yeah.
I had an issue with the way they turned her back into Timeless Tony. But honestly, after a couple of weeks of thinking about it, the whole segment just grew on me, and I think they just played that perfectly. To be honest, I think I can't really think of a fault with this rivalry. Honestly,
same. I'm in the same exact boat. But let's keep it rolling here. Speaking of women's matches, we had a CEO Mercedes Moné defense against Momo. Shadi, I know you are a resident CEO expert.
Yep.
Not on CEOs, but the CEO.
Yeah. The only CEO that matters. Man, this match was for me. Y'all know I love Joshi wrestling. I love them girls in Stardom. I love Momo Watanabe. I think she's an absolute demon. She does what she does. And her and Mercedes had a very, very well wrestled match against each other. A lot of people complained about it being on the card, saying, well, it's too predictable or whatnot. But the reason I have the utmost respect for Mercedes Moné is because she is taking the title and multiple titles, and she's running the ground and opening avenues for wrestlers that we are not familiar with in the United States. Unless you are an avid wrestling fan, you know, you watch AEW and you watch WWE, that's kind of the main focus over here. And she has matches against people that she respects and she wants to go against. That's why she wrestled Mina Shirakawa. That's why she's wrestled with the New Japan Strong title against the likes of, you know, Stephanie Vaquer, obviously, when she wrestled her on Forbidden Door, Mayu Iwatani, like all these people, right? She doesn't care. She's doing it for the love of pro wrestling, and she's been having such an incredible title reign when you talk about what has been displayed bell for bell. Like, it's mind-boggling for people to go and criticize her. I know the hot take from a lot of people was she should have lost to Harley Cameron. You know, I don't agree with some notions like that because end of the day, man, this is a Hall of Famer. This is a Mount Rushmore-esque talent in women's wrestling who's still very well in the prime of her career. Her being the champion creates avenues, gives opportunities, especially with the belt that she has now. Now, in regards to the match last night, physical bout, it gives you everything that you love within the Joshi style. I think Momo Watanabe showcased a lot of why she is a special professional wrestler last night, too. I thought they displayed what they wanted to do, and they knocked it out the park on a jam-packed card. For what's next for Mercedes, I'm excited because it seems like Billy Starks is in the horizon. I think that's a person that could benefit having a little rivalry with Mercedes Moné. And then behind Billy Starks, we got the Boogeyman. We got the Grim Reaper. We got the match that will be the best wrestled women's match in AEW history if they book it. Athena versus Mercedes Moné. That is something that can sell out a damn arena because they are going to go tear the roof apart once they get their hands on each other. So all in all, I've never sold my stock on my CEO, man. We run into the bank with it.
I love it. I love it. By the way, I will say this. The Boogie Woman, Athena, has a nice ring to it. I'm just saying that might work. We might be onto something here, Shadi.
It is coming, bro. It's knocking on our front door because the Billy Starks is definitely, man, Billy is so damn good too. And I don't want to take anything away from her and not appreciate that rivalry, that match that happens first, because that's a person who I, have been following for a little while. When she was a young girl in the independents having death matches, right? Mm-hmm. As a teenage girl, now she's growing into a young woman. Like, she, to me, is like similar in that same age group of young talent, like a Roxanne Perez, a Cora Jade, right? A Nick Wayne. Like, these people are such generational talents for the next wave. And I think, yeah, man, you get a good few with Mercedes, that can really help elevate her career too.
There's a lot of history there as well with Mercedes and Billy. I think there's like a picture of them, like a contract, not a contract signing, like a meet and greet. Sorry,
way back in the day. No, you're right. Yeah. Famously, there is a lot of history there. That's a great point. But let's keep it rolling on today's show. We got a lot of matches to cover here, boys. It's
We're going the whole show. 60.
Ben was even like, no graphics today, guys. Way too many topics. Think about that. That's how you know. That's how you know it's good. Let's talk about this next match because I'm actually really excited to talk about it, especially with you, Archie, because I'm very aware, obviously, the West Coast, geography-wise, Washington, Oregon, California, all of that, right? That's the West Coast of the United States. Those are the three states. Swerve is from, I believe, Tacoma, Washington, or that area, Washington State. And I have lived here now for about, 15 plus years. And I was completely somehow unaware of just how over in Los Angeles Swerve Strickland is. He was the most popular wrestler on the card by far.
Yeah.
Not close in that building last night. Not close. Like, and it's crazy because the card was stacked with talent. I was blown away by the reaction for everything Swerve did, from the entrance to the Who's House chants. I mean, I'm telling you, I filmed a video 45 minutes after the conclusion of the show with not very much of a crowd. And, we were having a good time with the guys and yelling Who's House. People are still yelling Swerve's House. In LA Live, immediately after the conclusion of the show, LA Live, the little center across the street from Crypto Arena, the Who's House, Swerve's House chants echoed throughout the city. It was so loud. I mean, I'm talking like 40% of the crowd had spilled out into that area. And in unison, Who's House, Swerve's House, over and over and over, to the point where we were giggling every time it would happen, because then all of a sudden it'd just be one person would yell Who's House, and then in unison it was everybody, right? It was the atmosphere was electric and off the charts. Obviously, he gets the jacket back against his big new rival, our favorite Irish wrestler, Rick O'Shea.
Ricochet,
yeah. Prince Nana avenged, which I loved. Nana is over as well. We see him later in the conclusion of the show, which we'll talk about when we get to the main event. But Archie, this match in particular, I think it was slightly overshadowed by some of the other matches and how crazy they were. It was really good. But my biggest personal takeaway from in the building was that Swerve is the most over person in the company, at least according to the Los Angeles crowd. And I want to know if that came through watching on pay-per-view live.
It's because he likes that bum team in Los Angeles, the Rams.
No, yeah, it did come across on TV for sure. But I think Swerve is I mean, he's over in LA, but I feel like he's over pretty much anywhere AEW go. What you described there, it was very similar to what I experienced at Money in the Bank in London when everybody walked out of the arena. It was always, whose game is it? LA Knight's game. Those kind of chants. That's all you would hear walking out of the arena. I think Swerve's on that level, perhaps even higher in terms of how popular he is in AEW. The match was great, as you said. It was overshadowed, I agree. But no, it was a great match. I don't think this is the last match between them. And it shouldn't be. Something I've been quite vocal about with Ricochet is his heel turn, and I've got to hold my hands up and say that I was wrong about Ricochet, because I didn't have high expectations for his heel turn when it happened, but he has blown that out of the water, my expectations, because you can tell that he's actually worked hard on improving his promo work, his character work. And I've still got problems with his heel run, which were evident in this match, because I feel like although he's got an interesting in-ring style, I'd like to see him adapt it a bit more to kind of so it aligns better with his character. But I mean, honestly, I think right now he's Ricochet. He needs to get a lot of credit for cementing himself as an upper mid-card heel, maybe even a main event heel from time to time. But Swerve was absolutely the right guy to win this match. As you said, he's as over as anyone in that company. And it's really cool that he's facing Mox, I'm guessing at Dynasty, and it's a year on from his first AEW World title win. So AEW Dynasty is starting to become the Swerve Strickland show a bit. But
absolutely.
He's so over. And he's absolutely brilliant.
and so, I mean, I've got a real quick story just from last night at the show. Like, one of my really good friends, Bryce, absolute huge sports fan, but he'd never been into pro wrestling, never been introduced to it. It was his very first show ever, never seen it on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And so we tried to give him as much context as possible. He loved it, right? But one of the most interesting things is it took about 5 steps up the ramp for him. He turns and he nudged me. And he just goes, "That guy's a star."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he took 5 steps onto the entrance ramp, and it was like, him. Like, I get it. Like, I didn't have to explain anything. I'm like, oh, right, I could have. Yeah. And it was like, just bled through.
He's a face of the franchise kind of guy.
Yeah, every time I see Swerve Strickland on TV, I'm thinking Tony Khan must think he's hit the lottery with how Swerve has just fallen into his hands with WWE releasing him. He's when we talk about WWE kind of releasing talent, the success story, Swerve Strickland is right up there. And when you talk about when WWE does do these releases, you look at someone like Swerve and say WWE is not the be all and end all. And you can rebuild yourself to the level like Swerve can. And he's a role model for that, really.
And
absolutely.
And to that point, obviously, before we get to the next topic, it's the fact that he wears AEW on his sleeve. He's a flag bearer too, and he's 100%. Very appreciative given the opportunity.
Team player.
And I watched the post press conference and hearing him talk, and he's saying like free agents who want to come here, and they like challenging people. Like if you think you can do kind of what I did, bet on yourself and try doing it. It's kind of one of those situations where he's very prideful of what he did and where he is, and he should be, but he still roots for a garbage team.
And then just one more thing before we do move on to the next topic. I'll also say, like, I don't know about all of the merch stands in the arena. It's a very large arena, and I didn't walk around as much as I normally would, but I did go over to the merch stand after the one closest to us after the match, and Swerve's shirt had already sold out, which is pretty impressive.
I think I got.
I'm not surprised.
That's pretty impressive to me, right? That's something quantifiable. I'm not sure it was every stand. I'm sure maybe you could have walked around and. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I actually, Manzano, I was going to. He said it still feels weird that he'd rather be booing him as a bad guy than cheering him as a babyface. Does that make sense? It kind of does, other than I am now fully on board as a babyface. So, like, agree to disagree almost. It makes sense. I get your reasoning there. Like, he was a great heel. He was a sadistic heel.
Yeah,
he put a syringe in Hangman Adam Page's cheek. Like, that was gnarly. Right? You know what I mean? Like,
he's just too cool not to
broke into his house, but
not to cheer.
I think it's one of those. Roman Reigns got cheered when he was a
you know what it is?
Like, you want to root for someone who's cool. I mean,
exactly.
I think this goes back to, as much as I'm tongue in cheek often, not to open up a can of worms here, but before, as much as I'm tongue in cheek often about baby faces like John Cena formerly and Cody Rhodes, the type of baby face I prefer that I grew up with were the Shawn Michaels and HBKs that were edgy. And they were such cool heels. It was undeniable. You kind of had to turn them face as almost anti-heroes, right? Like Shawn was kind of a bully in DX and we all cheered him, right? That's what I grew up on. You know what I mean? Stone Cold was kicking his boss in the stomach and stunning him and flipping off the crowd. Like that's the baby face I grew up on. You know what I mean? Like, and so
exactly.
For me, I actually like the edginess, the anti-hero, because it feels real. I don't necessarily love I hate to say howdy doody, but I just don't love the like all good everyman all the time, because I think no one's really like that. Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, people aren't really like that. Like there are very good people in the world, but they're not wholesome 24 hours a day. And that's frustrating to me. Like it makes it feel forced. And that is no knock. I am not saying that they're bad performers or there's anything wrong with Cena or Cody in any way on this one. I'm actually being real and serious here when it comes to that subject. But let's get real
personal
serious.
Preference. Yeah,
exactly. Let's get real serious about this next one, though, because holy heck. First off, I don't know if that cage looked as tall on television as it did in person, but that thing was tall.
It was very tall.
They did not bring in a regular cage. They're like, give us the big one.
Both of them boys climbed up the cage to get in too.
Yeah.
Fly. Oh my. Again, I went with me and Carter Crisp, diehard lifelong fans. Been to a bazillion shows.
Yeah.
Two absolute first timers. We had to pick their jaws up off the floor on the Spanish Fly spot. That was like the moment of moments. Who in the world is that crazy?
Insane. Yeah.
This thing was violence personified. I absolutely adored this match. Shad, were you in the same boat, man? Obviously, you watched the broadcast with the commentary. I mean, that had to be absurd.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real with you, bro. This was probably my match of the night personally. I feel like I'm a broken record every time Will Ospreay has a match because it ends up being a match of the night. But dude, this match was everything that you needed in a physical bloodshed type of feud between two brothers, and they went the absolute distance. I loved all the crazy spots, the sequences, the Mark Davis coming in and having his part of the whole role. Will Ospreay paying homage to Cactus Jack, hitting the bang bang, having the weapons like Mick Foley would like with the barbed wire bat. Like everything tied to it was so good, man. And like you mentioned, the Spanish Fly off the top of the cage. These guys went the absolute distance. The ending with, Kyle Fletcher saying, I effing hate you. I effing hate you. Just cursing at him, pleading to him. And Ospreay finishing the job. getting the win. It felt like poetic justice, man. And that's just like Mariah May and Toni Storm. That's how you cap off a trilogy. That's how you cap off a personal feud between two guys that are very tight with each other. And Will Ospreay, man, I can't fathom that people can dislike the dude as a pro wrestler. He is that high quality of a wrestler that you watch and you're instantly amazed. He does everything to a T as a pro wrestler when it comes with movesets. And this is a guy, man, like we talking about Swerve being a face of the franchise. They got another dude. He's the face of the franchise for AEW. He's a future world champion. And he always comes out, shows out, and does what he needs to do for the sake of AEW. Also, got to give love to Kyle Fletcher, though. Because this is a young man who he's getting there. He is going to get there. He is going to be a main event superstar very soon. He's found his niche as a heel. He's found the cockiness, the charisma, working with Don Callis. But man, oh man, that boy can work. That boy can freaking wrestle. He don't take no time off. They don't take no plays off, man. These guys are certified like I'm in the field taking no plays off type of dudes, man. And this hopefully won't be the last that we ever see them go one-on-one against each other. But I'm so excited to see what the future is for Ospreay. Obviously, that's someone that you got to pay attention to for the AEW World Championship picture at some point. And then Kyle Fletcher, man. Let's get him some gold soon, man. One of these mid-card belts, like he deserves to get some mid-card gold at some point.
Shadi, you and I have been doing these shows for a long time. Long enough that Kyle Fletcher looked a lot different when we started. And between you and I, bro, we were critical of him when he was, there was a phase where both of us had the same sentiment. It was like, I don't understand. Who is this guy? What is his deal? He's got a goofy haircut. I've never seen a haircut and an attitude change advance somebody further. I would argue even over the length of us doing those shows outside of maybe Swerve, who we mentioned in the last segment, and Toni Storm, I would throw in there too.
So it's one of those cases, bro. It's like I always the analogy I always give in the WWE is like Jey Uso's biggest blessing in disguise is when Jimmy got hurt and he got thrown into the fire with the whole tribal chief storyline and was basically Roman's right-hand man, right?
Yeah.
Mark Davis getting hurt really allowed Kyle Fletcher to have to be a single star. And say what anybody wants to say about him. I know y'all find him annoying, but that's his job. Don Callis is the best manager, like one of the best managers in pro wrestling.
The heel and thumb.
My wife calls him Evil Howie Mandel. That man is such a
Howie Mandel with germs.
Yeah, bro. He's so like the Callis family. I will be honest with you. When it was super big, it was kind of like, all right, it's kind of a little much, but they consolidated it and they helped two guys out. Takeshita needs a manager because Takeshita is just a straight killer. He don't need to say a lot of words. He gonna wreck you, leave. That's a paid man that you try to get your kills with. Then Fletcher, he's the cocky upstart type of dude, right? He's the guy who's gonna run his mouth a little bit, and you have a manager that kind of bigs him up and whatnot. So it's a great unit, man, and I really like them, even though a lot of people hate him for the heel. But that's what you gotta do. You gotta hate him.
He's so good. I agree. Callis is great on commentary and his heel work as well. From I Make Beats, and then Dawn family had too many members at first, but I think they've narrowed it down. It's good. Maria with Kyle Fletcher was breakout star of the year. I kind of agree. Fletcher's going full Randy Orton here from I Make Beats, and then Kyle Fletcher has separated himself from the pack with this team.
I said he was young Randy Orton, and people absolutely
you called it.
Me, bro.
You called it, though.
I told him that. I see the parallels to it, bro.
I agree.
He's as sadistic as that heel Randy Orton as well, with that licking Osprey's blood at every chance he can get.
Yes.
And it's,
To
I
that
see the
point,
parallels. I see the
bro,
parallels.
He licked the screwdriver.
100%. Okay, so we got to hustle just a skosh, guys.
Yeah,
We're a
let's go,
little
let's go, let's
behind,
go.
but we're good.
All right.
Kenny Omega against Takeshita.
Yeah.
Heck of a match. Title change. Pretty unbelievable. Archie, talk to me about this one.
Yeah, so one of my first thoughts after I watched Tony Storm and Mariah May was, what a match I just watched was, I wonder who's going to follow these two, because that's going to be very tough to follow. And it was Kenny Omega and Takeshita. And if you want to have any two people follow that match, those are the two guys you want following it. I thought it did take a while for the crowd to get into the match. Personally, that's what I saw on TV. But by the end of it, they were on the edge of their seats and they were going crazy. Takeshita, you're talking about two guys. Takeshita is somebody that's one of the best wrestlers in the world, without a doubt. He can be pushed as one of the big stars of AEW. And I hope he does. I hope he is after this match. And Kenny Omega is just pro wrestling's version of the Terminator. Like, the guy is timeless, and we are incredibly lucky to be able to watch someone like Kenny Omega, who has such a love for this industry that we all love so much, and he gives his all every night, and just a generational talent. As the match was incredible, as I expected from these two, and I thought the finish was great. It was very smart.
Cool.
It kept Takeshita looking strong.
Yes.
And it made Kenny look
cool
like
Owen Hart-esque.
It made Kenny look like the experienced veteran that he is, and he's made him look smart.
The only complaint I had about this whole thing, and it's not even really a complaint, I just thought it was an interesting tidbit being in the building.
Yeah.
You know, since his return, they haven't been, like, Justin Roberts isn't doing the old school Michael Jordan, North Carolina thing.
Yeah.
The crowd really wanted to do it. And
Yeah,
I'm
right.
wondering if that's why, like, it kind of sucked the wind out of the entrances. Because the crowd, like, there was a section of the crowd that sort of, like, said North Carolina anyway, and, like, an awkward timing
Right. Yeah.
thing. Like, it was like, it came
Okay.
across like a murmur. It was kind of bizarre. No, because I remember
Yeah.
giggling about it. Like, I was actually sitting on the other side of the where we were sitting, and I went over to Carter, and I was like, "That was weird, wasn't it?" He was like, "It was weird." Like, it
Yeah.
was just, it was like an odd thing. No, I don't think it's a huge deal, but when you mentioned
it
you were like, it took a while for the crowd to get in the match. Yeah, it was kind of like that section flopped for a second.
Yeah, I think it was a mixture of that, as you said. Maybe the entrances, they weren't as hyped for the entrances, and also the Tony and Mariah match maybe took a lot out of them.
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah, but the entrances looked awesome on TV, by the way. So it didn't
Right.
take away from the entrances on TV. But
Yeah, it wasn't the entrances were fine. It was more the introduction.
oh right, okay, yeah.
You know how he used to do like the
The
famous,
North
like, Michael Jordan,
Carolina,
like, North Carolina, like
Mhm.
there was like an
Yeah.
awkward timing, like as he got to the ring where like the crowd wanted to do it. And
Yeah,
Justin Roberts
okay.
was like starting to talk, and they like said North Carolina. It was like a murmur. It was it was kind of odd. I've like
Yeah.
never seen that, because I
Mhm.
also didn't realize that obviously they haven't been doing it. Like, I just didn't clock that before
Mhm.
since his return, that Roberts hasn't been doing the full like Space Jam blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, I just found it kind of funny. Like, I was like, okay, that's different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But let's move on to our main event of the evening, afternoon, morning, depends on where you are,
Mhm.
and the main event of last evening, which is Jon Moxley versus Cope, the artist formerly known as Edge.
Yeah.
And Christian cashes in. A little bit of funk here, more than a little bit of funk. We want the funk. And then Jay White inserts his nose into the picture at one stage, I believe. Even there was all kinds of shenanigans in this one. Tons
Wheeler
of them.
Yuta did, yeah.
Yeah, Wheeler Yuta was out there roaming around,
Mhm.
and then at the end we do get Swerve Strickland, and I'm really glad they didn't go off air, because that is who should have ended the show. That's the reason the show ended on a high note in the building. I can imagine on TV it did not land the same way. I can imagine on TV, given the way the main event went down, it was kind of like, Swerve coming out saved the mood of the night. Like I said, I said it earlier when we talked about his match. The chants were deafening across the street after the event. That was the biggest positive. The rest of this was tough for me. Feels like a wasted cash in.
Yeah.
Boy, did the crowd sing Metalingus. Edge's song. It was delightful. I yelled it as usual because I really can't sing. But at the same time, it just felt like a stone unturned here, and Cage losing the contract. I don't know. And then another thing that really bothered me, and Archie, I'm going to go straight to you after this, but this is what bothered me the most all night. And it sucks because I loved everything else about this night. But the fact that Christian just signed it, it took a second for the arena to understand what was going on. There was no in-arena announcement or get on the microphone and say something, or even Justin Roberts quicker on the draw. It took a second for everyone to be like, is he really cashing in? Is he not? And I understand now because I saw the clip that he signed the contract. So on the broadcast, you could fully tell what was up.
Yeah.
But like it was like a delayed reaction because everyone was kind of unsure because it was almost in silence. And I just don't understand that part of it. Overall, it was a fine match. It's not like it wasn't entertaining. And don't get me wrong, we were exhausted by that point. This was a 4-hour show. It's 9 o'clock on the West Coast. I can't even imagine you're in the UK and on the East Coast, it's after midnight. But at the same time, this was like the one thing left to be desired. Talk to me about your perspective watching it last night, Arch.
So that's quite interesting you brought up the cash in, because I feel like when he was signing it, it got a pretty big reaction from what I heard, but maybe that's just me.
I think that was more down by ringside. It was harder if you weren't right by ringside.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, no, it's fine. No, but this one did frustrate me a lot because the AEW put on a fantastic show, and I've been praising them all show today, but the worst decision they could have made was putting this as the main event, and not because Tony Storm and Mariah May deserved it, even though they did. It's just because this kind of match that Moxley and Copeland, who are both legends of this business, were wrestling, it wasn't the kind of match that, not that AEW fans weren't used to it, but wouldn't be interested in seeing as a main event. That's not the kind of wrestling style they're interested in seeing as a main event, in my opinion. And the cash in was a complete waste of what could have been a really, really cool moment. As you said, Clark, I think, I don't know where this is heading towards now. Maybe Copeland and Christian. It was just very frustrating when I was watching it, because the match needed something to lift it up. And then when Christian pulled the referee out of the ring and he signed the contract, we were all in the watch along, just like, that kind of woke us up a bit. And then we were kind of hoping Christian was going to win it, I guess. Well, I was, at least, anyway. And there was a cool moment where Christian was in the sleeper and he was trying to pin Copeland. I'm not saying I wanted the match to finish that way, but that would have been a pretty smart way for it to finish. But yeah, yes. It was just very frustrating. And not to kind of go into my inner Wade Barrett too much, but I've got some bad news for people that think the Death Riders storyline, or people that don't enjoy the Death Riders storyline, are hoping that it finishes soon. You've got a few more months of this, because I think that the guy that we've been talking, that Shad was talking about earlier, Will Ospreay, I feel like he's the one that's going to beat Moxley for the title in August in Forbidden Door.
We've also got.
So yeah.
I mean, nothing against Darby. Swerve should be the one to take down Moxley.
I think it should be Ospreay.
Swerve, Ospreay. People were saying Darby for a long time.
Yeah.
It really could be anyone.
It could be one of y'all, bro. Moxley needs the title off of him, bro.
It obviously isn't going to be. It's not going to be Cope, and it's not going to be Christian.
No.
Which I think is interesting. I'm glad it's not.
Yeah.
This isn't the way I would have done it. Maria added, it was bad timing for Christian to be booked to win a championship match contract with this Death Rider story. Yeah, that's the problem with the contract.
I guess.
And here's my thing. I think Christian's doing great work, but really this is about Christian and Cope. When it comes down to who's going to beat Moxley and this Death Rider storyline, which I know people are upset about, and I keep saying a stone has to drop, right? Something has to happen. We have to see something different. They have to change something up. I kind of had an idea last night, and I want to present it before I toss this over to you, Shad. What if whether it's Swerve or Ospreay or Darby or anybody, when they win, the title's not in the briefcase for some reason. And this is where then the story really happens. And there's a reason for that too. Like the title was never even in the briefcase. He's stolen it. He's pawned it. He's done something absolutely wild. And so you win, but you're not. That is something that I think could be really cool. Like one of those sort of monumental moments where you're like, oh, this is different. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to get too creative, but it's got to be something. There has to be a freaking reason. There's got to be something going on. Like they're not just doing this. He's not just carrying around a stupid briefcase and hanging out with his friends and beating people up for no reason.
I don't even think they're his friends.
He just hasn't given it. We're not even sure if they're really friends. I don't even know if they're actually friends. I think they're just like associates of sorts. You know what I mean? I don't know. Shad, can you make some sense of this from last night? And what were your thoughts on it watching it live?
Yeah, so he basically does have their title in the briefcase, and they are just beating up people with his friends. I hate to break it to you, bro.
Shoot.
So here's my thing, right? And I'll be honest with you. I don't think Cope and Moxley had a bad match. I just think they were put into a bad situation. And I say that to say this. The style that Moxley wrestles, slow pace, methodical. That is the same way as Cope Edge at this current juncture in time. So we knew that was going to be the case. We knew they weren't going to tear the house down and have a match like Ospreay and Fletcher or Omega and Takeshita or Storm and May or Ricochet and Swerve. Like all the matches before that gave the fans something to yearn for that has a lot of momentum, a lot of high quality moves. It goes jumping out the gym type of situations. With this one, it's the main event. You got a tired crowd. You wrestling a slow pace. Yeah, you're not gonna get a lot of reaction. And yes, it did show. So for that, I don't think it was horrible, but it is what it is. That's the type of match you are gonna get. But I will get to why I didn't like it. Christian Cage having this Money in the Bank-esque contract cash in was always stupid to me. I never understood the point of it. And for that to be the end off and him banking off of a failed cash in, it was a waste. It was a super big waste. Where was his team? Where were the Death Riders? Like, there was a lot of confusion going into that. Moxley got to drop the title, bro. I think it's time. I think Swerve is a good person that you can kind of break the glass and save the day at Dynasty and let him be champ and then get some good feuds going in after that so you know who you want to be the champion. But Mox got to get the belt off. Mox, I said it on Take It to the Table. We might have to miss Moxley again. I think we are so soured by Moxley being part of the Death Riders where we probably don't want to see him in the main event picture at all. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I think that is sad for sure.
I just wanted to say one thing on that. I don't think Moxley needs to lose the title at all. I'd much prefer that they go through with what their original plan is. What they need to do is they need to book this better. They need to make it more compelling. I don't think Moxley and the Death Riders are the problem at all. I think the problem is
I feel like we're so far off the tracks. It's so difficult to get back on the tracks.
Why? Who bothered them? Why did they make the decision to do this? Give me a reason.
Yeah.
Why is the only thing this is missing? I don't even think it's a booking problem. They've booked great matchups. They've had great
Yeah.
matches. It's not even a booking
No, it's
problem.
not
It's
a
a
booking
creative
problem.
issue. Tell me why they're doing this. Why are these people so mad?
It's Moxley, bro.
Why is he mad?
Brainchild.
Who made him mad? And why did they
It's
make him
Moxley.
mad? And why is he hiding the belt? Is it even in the briefcase?
The thing, I just think that doing the break glass emergency, like you said, Shad, I think it's much better to. It doesn't need to go. The title doesn't need to go on someone like Swerve, who's already a made person in that company. It needs to go on someone that it'll be their first world title win. So I think it does. They need to wait and take the title off Moxley until someone like Ospreay or maybe Darby can win it. I mean, Ospreay personally,
I don't even think the reason I say give it to someone like Swerve is because I think it brings more merit back to the title. I think the title does not feel important at all right now. At all.
No, I agree.
You know what's gonna happen? The title that Kenny Omega is holding is gonna feel like that's the main title because Kenny Omega is holding it. Because
That's kind of true too. Well, now that goes back to remember Cody Rhodes is the one that said all the titles are equal in AEW.
But then the thing is though is with Moxley is he's a legend of this business. He's a legend of this business, right? So there's got to be a reason why there's not, and it's not his fault that the stature of the AEW World Championship isn't as high as it was when, say, Swerve or Bryan Danielson was holding it.
But
I feel like
it is. It's not.
It's fair.
It's slightly his fault.
They don't even show the title on television.
No, that's. But
it is slightly his fault because his title reign is the reason why it's losing importance, to it.
But that's not. Yeah, but is he in charge of? Is he in charge of creative? Is he in charge of creative though? Because that's the creative. That's not. He's doing the best he can with the creative.
That's very true. Okay, guys, we could sincerely, the three of us could break this down for the rest of the afternoon, but I will not let Ben win. We are going to beat the 60-minute mark, so that is going to bring us to the end of the show. If you want to hear more from us three, I promise we talk all the time.
We do.
We'll be back, and guess what? I still know the times, despite all this daylight savings nonsense and craziness. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific. That's 4 o'clock on the East Coast. It's still 8 o'clock in the UK because y'all got 3 more weeks, so you change your clocks. Yeah. That makes it 10 a.m. for my friends in Hawaii. Boom, nailed it. I was worried about that today with this time change thing. It gets awkward. I've got that thing down to a science. But really hope you enjoyed the show. Please, if you haven't liked and subscribed, do so. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody that tuned in. As always, we love y'all. Have an awesome Monday. Enjoy Raw tonight. Enjoy all the wrestling this week. And we will talk to you soon.